And a day later, we have our little knife, fresh out of the clamp. Really glad it didn't accidentally pierce that piece of like 3/16 poplar. That would have been pretty bad. But it's all permanent and glued together. There's not really anything left to do but finish off that handle. So I've switched to normal hand files at this point because I don't need rough work. I need more precise work. Also, the file marks are a lot less aggressive than the Shinto rasp. So for this part of the project, Shinto rasp is dead to me. But what I've done is I wrapped the knife handle, or sorry, the knife blade and bolster in blue painter's tape, specifically so I can get the bolster and handle flush to one another. And once I hit painter's tape, I can back off, and I still have to come back around and get them to be truly flush to one another. But there's a lot of this kind of work. Sand, rotate, repeat, sand, rotate. File. Same thing. No, it's not. Please don't. Don't. But now I can take out some of the more egregious file marks, or rasp marks with the file. This works out real nice too. Nothing crazy. I still have to shape that nub at the bottom. Oh my god, that is a terrible place to stop at. The squeaks weren't all that bad. Apparently I chose the squeakiest squeaks that everybody has to deal with. The Shinto rasp is back. This is the fastest way for me to do this part. No getting around it. Looking back at it too, I would have changed the shape of the back to be a little more favorable to just an angle and not rounding out the whole thing. Just because it would be easier to have a cleaner, have cleaner lines, and I can make a clean chamfer and all these other things. It'd be good stuff. But no, I committed to the idea that I had first, which was to try to make it look like a Sharpie butt. But it would be a thick Sharpie butt regardless. Oh well. This is a really good example of how the regular, how the regular hand file can take down those marks, and you get a much sort of smoother surface, like right off the bat before you've even started sanding. I do make myself nervous when I clamp the blade like this, but that also works out, so I'm really happy that nothing went really bad with that. So yeah, the shimmy method with our flexible sandpaper and whatever sandpapers I have on hand. The wood after this already feels I would venture to say plasticky without actually being plastic or having any finish that gets put on it that's plastic. So this is really, really cool. Like, it's a really cool piece of wood. It also has me thinking about how I can do these processes more efficiently, because I would love to make more small knives like this without it costing an arm and a leg for an end user who, for all intents and purposes, should get something that they want to use every day, not just like hide in a cupboard or like put in a safe. Like, I don't want to make something that doesn't get used. I want it to be pretty and functional and have those two things not fight one another. Yeah, but now that we're up to 320 grit, like, this thing's starting to feel really good, but it's about to feel even better. Stop it. I'm wiping it down with acetone just to raise the grain and have the acetone evaporate real quick. So, as I understand it, any liquid will go into the surface of the wood, it'll raise any grains that have been pushed down, and then when it dries off and you sand it down again, you sand down the parts that were raised up, effectively making it smoother than it would be had you not done that. And at least from this experience, I will say, sure, it might as well have worked. Yeah, it felt a little safer to just hold it at this point as well. So you may be wondering why I switched to the file now instead of doing this earlier, and that's because I'm an idiot. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting both surfaces true to each other. This does cause one defect in the handle that I don't catch until it's far too late, but the brass and the wood are now flushed together with one another, and I'm really happy I did that, because that is a much less glaring error. Had I not fixed that, it would feel wrong. But what I do is I kind of make a taper towards the top, and it really doesn't matter in the long run, but I would go back and change how I shaped the whole handle from the start instead of how I did it this time. But it's a lot of rotating, it's a lot of hand filing. It's a lot of hand filing. I agree. That's worth a heavy sigh. God damn it. Yep. So, aside from creating a flaw, it just needs to be sanded again to be happy and copacetic with everything else. Smaller pieces of sandpaper for the shimmy method are also better because you have less surface area to make contact with. Just in general. Which, of course, means redoing a little. I'm lucky that everything that went wrong on this particular project went wrong in a relatively small way. So I'm not displeased at all. And the little paper towel that's gripping it there at the bottom, that's more or less just for, that's for grip and to stop me from marring the handle. Since it is now round. Gotta be real careful reaching over it too, because that thing is pretty sharp already. And this dust is pretty gnarly. Yeah, but going up all the way through the grits again is the best way to go about this whole thing. There's not really a shortcut at that point. If you gotta redo something, you just redo it. It's not the end of the world. But I do have an extra little something. It's a Tamiya sanding sponge. And whatever a 1500 grit is for Tamiya sanding sponges, this is this is sort of overkill. And overkill is also not the right word, because my goodness, it was well worth the time. So now it already feels very smooth and plasticky. The 3000 sanding sponge, that just seals the deal. It's such a fine finish that I am super pleased with it. And it's not micro mesh. I think it's literally a sanding sponge. Micro mesh is something completely different. I'm glad that most of that was hidden behind my hand so you couldn't really see it. But that's it. Sort of. You'll see why later. I'm using regular clear mineral oil to finish the knife. It's food safe. It'll help seal what's left of the wood. It's not going to discolor like boiled linseed oil does. It makes a really nice complement to everything else. It just gets it it's that last little bit. I really like it. And as is tradition, we don't speed through oiling the wood. If it was a 6-foot table that you could fit an entire 6-foot pizza on, I would still oil the table in a regular, normal human motion. But we have another element to make. It is a sharpie, quote-unquote, knife, and it needs a cap. So I find myself a nice piece of wood, and the next video is the last one. Thanks for watching. I'll have my my brain together eventually. I really won't, though. Bye.